Multi-step is half no calculator, half calculator. Are there any questions on this page that we want to see you go over review? If there are others, we'll go back to it. So with number 3, we would need to distribute. Remember that there's an invisible negative here, so that's what we're distributing on this side, 2 on the other side. So 3w minus 7w minus 12 equals 2w minus 6. Combine your like terms. On the same side, 3w minus 7w, so negative 4w. And then we have choices. What do we want to move first? So if we add 12 to both sides, we would also have to subtract 2w to the other side. So negative 6w equals 6. And divide both sides by negative 6. Remember that on the calculator section, you do have your calculator to double check your work, put it back in, double check and see does it work, does it give you a 1 or not, however you like it. Other questions on this page? As a reminder for your proportions, when you have something, a fraction that equals another fraction, what's your first step? What would you think? So, like for numbers 7 through 10, what would be your very first step? Cross multiply. To make sure that's a diagonal, not straight across. So, like for 7, 2 times x plus 8 in parentheses, 4 times 9, and so on and so forth. If no other questions on this page, not the back of that page, but skip a page and go to the page that looks like this. Numbers 1 through 4, any questions on those? So for number 4, like Jonathan said, we would cross multiply. You don't have to do this part, but you do have to rewrite 6 times x plus 6 equals 2 times x minus 8. Does not matter whether you put this part on the right or on the left, as long as you put them both. Distribute. So we have 6x plus 36 equals 2x minus 16. What do we want to move first? If we subtract 2x to both sides, we have to subtract 36 to the other side. 4x equals negative 52. And then divide both sides by 4. What is x? Whoever's phone is in 14, your sound is on, or your phone is on. What is x? questions on that before we move on? Right now we're doing objectives, but when we come back to that, yes. So on the next page, 10 through 15 are all multi-step equations. Any of those we have questions on? Or the page after that, 7, 8, 11 through 13. So if you get a question that asks which equation has no solution, you have to simplify if need be. So like all of these have like terms we can combine. I'm going to write this off to the side. 9x plus 9 equals 9x plus 9. We'll talk about which one is no solution here in a moment. Distribute if necessary. So this would be x plus 6x plus 30. And then if we combine our like terms, 7x plus 30 equals 7x plus 30. Combining our like terms for c, negative 5x plus 9 equals negative 5x plus 9. Distribute x plus 6x plus 30. 7x minus 6 equals 7x plus 30. So you have to get that part first, and then remember that if it looks identical on both sides, that's infinitely many. So not A, not B, not C, so D. They have to have the same coefficient, the number in front of the x, and different constants. Now, what you could also do, but this might take more time, is pick a number. Since it's supposed to be no solution, it's not going to work regardless. If you pick a number, put it in for all your x's and it works, that's not it. You pick that same number, put it in and it works, not it, this will not. But again, that might take some more time. That is the rest of the multi-step. So let's go back to the back of the first page. So now we're in objective 2, solving absolute value equations. Want 11 through 14, any of those you want to see, these go over, have questions about. So the very first page on the back of it. So number 13 is the one we're going to do. You have to isolate first, get rid of the negative 4 by dividing it to both sides. Once it's isolated and it equals a positive number, we can continue. If this were a negative number, it would be no solution. But here we can drop the absolute value, set it equal to a positive and negative version of 8. Remember, if you don't have the other equation, you're missing half of the work, half of the answer. Solve both equations. 2w equals 2 and 2w equals negative 14. Divide everything by 2. So that our solution set would be w equals, in curly brackets, negative 7, 1. Make sure this is least to greatest. In curly brackets, w equals outside of it. Other questions in that section or questions same process, get rid of everything around the absolute value, so we can get rid of the 9 by adding. And then get rid of the 5 by dividing on both sides. So we have absolute value of 4x minus 4 equals 8. It's now isolated. It equals a positive, so we can keep going. Drop the absolute value, set it equal to a positive and negative 8. Solve both equations. Add 4. You get 4x equals negative 4 and 4x equals 12. Divide both sides by 4. So that our solution set is x equals negative 1 and 3. Questions on that one before we move to the next page? On the next page, numbers 5 and 6, Rose, do you still want to do 6? So for number 6, we would subtract 7. Now, yes, this equals a negative, but this is not isolated, so we can keep going. Divide both sides by negative 2. Now it's a positive, so now we can keep going. Drop the absolute value, set it equal to a positive and negative 5. And add 4 on both sides. So that our solution set is negative 1, 9. Questions on that one? Once you finish writing that one, skip the back of that page, go on to the next page, numbers 9 and 10 on that one. Either of those you want to see me go over. Skip the back of that page. On the next page, numbers 1 through 8. And if none there, skip the back of that. The last page, 9 through 16. So if no more absolute value, let's move on to literal. I think the first literal problems are on, I should have remembered these earlier, but numbers 14 and 15. We want to see either of them. So for 14, we are solving for h. So we need to get rid of pi and r squared. How could we do that? Divide both sides by pi r squared. Make sure you're showing that you're doing whatever to both so that our answer can be b. Questions about 15? If not, go to the next, back of the next page. Numbers 1 through 6. The page that was with us. Any of those in 1 through 6 you want to do, go over, have questions about? Right, so starting with number 2, if we're trying to get r by itself, what would we do here? All at the same time. So we have c over 2 pi equals r. Number 3, if we're trying to get x1 by itself, we have to get rid of the x2 and the 2. What would we do first? On both sides. We have 2m, these 2's will cancel, equals x1 plus x2. And then our last step, not divide. 2m minus x2 equals x1 would be that final answer. Remember, these should not have numeric answers. There may be numbers in them, but you won't get x equals 2. You should not get that. Other questions in literal before we move on to word problems? So since we have word problems on this page, 1 through 4 at the bottom, any of those? Important information, so let's read it first. The following sign is posted at a gaming store, Destiny's Games. For members, they have a $20 fee, $2.50 per game. Non-members, $0 fee, $3 per game. Tim is a member, but Tanya is not. They both spent the same amount renting games. How many games did they both rent? So what is important here? $20 fee, as well as the $0 fee. Anything else? As well as $3 per game. This part is important enough to know that you're going to be using this and this, but not that important. What are we looking for? And this is very important. That they spent the same amount, because that's going to tell us how we're going to set it up, but then what we're looking for as well. Right. So first we need a variable. We need to define our variable. That's going to be our question, number of games. We can call it x. And then if we have our variable, we have these numbers, and we know they spent the same amount. What symbol is going to show me that they spent the same amount? Equals. And then how would I set up the member side into an equation? Like,
20 plus $2.50 on x.
whether you put does not matter. And then how would we set up the non-member side? Either or. You can put the 0 plus, you don't need the 0, you can just put 3x, up to you. Right, and then let's solve. We have to get all the variables on the same side. So let's subtract 2.5. And divide both sides by 0.5. What x? 40 what? Not dollars. So make sure you are labeling your answers as well. All right. Other questions in 1 through 4? On the back of the first page, there are more word problems. You can ignore the problems that talk about consecutive numbers. We're not doing those. But do we have questions on 15, 16, or 17? I will say that 17 or a question like it will be on the quiz and on the test. Okay, so let's read first. A rectangle has a length 6 inches less than twice its width. If the perimeter of the rectangle is 54 inches, find the dimensions. What's important in this one? What is that talking about? What is 6 inches less than twice its width? What specifically? And then what else is important? The perimeter is 54 inches. And then we have to find the dimensions. So if you're using variables other than L and W, define them, but also make sure that you define L and W just so that we know what those are. You don't have to specify more than just length and width, but we need to know what those variables are as we use them. How could we set up an equation for the length is 6 inches less than twice its width? So the 6 is going to go at the end, so it's going to be 2w minus 6. Right? And then you either need to remember the perimeter formula or remember that you are going to add up all the sides and we'll end up doing this a longer way. So P equals 2L plus 2W. And then we can start to move things around and put things into other things. So we know P is 54. The 2 would stay. We know L is this equation, so we're going to take that and put it in for L. And then the 2W at the end. If you forget the perimeter equation and you at least remember it's adding up all the sides, the rectangle has 4 sides, so you would be adding W plus W plus this in a long line and just combining like this. It will work out the same way, you just have to remember one of those things. Okay. Then we can continue solving. Distribute, combine like terms. Get W by itself by adding 12. And divide both sides by 6. So the W is 11 inches. Make sure you're putting your labels. one of your dimensions. How do we find the other? Not divide by 6, but there's somewhere we can put this in. Into this equation. We put 11 back in and figure out what L is. Questions on that one? Other questions on 15 or 16? We could do maybe one more word problem if you guys need it on the next page, 7 or 8. Or on the page where we did the literal problems, 16 or 17. So this will be the last one, and then I'll get you guys started on the quiz. So the larger of two numbers is 15 more than 3 times the smaller number. The sum of the two numbers is 63, and we have to find them. So you're going to have two numbers. This is similar to the rectangle or the perimeter column, but different at the same time. So you can call them two different variables. You can call them L and S. I'll let you choose. I'm going to say X is the larger number and Y is the smaller. Just so we have definitions for them. The larger of the two, so this is talking about X, is 15 more than 3 times the smaller number. How could we set that up? I heard plus 3 or 3s or y in my case, plus 15. Or if you put 15 plus 3y, that's fine. If you use s, that's also fine. We know the sum, so if we were to add x and y together, we would get 63. How it is similar to the perimeter question is we have an x equation. We have somewhere where x goes. So we're going to take that and put it into x. And then we can solve. So combine the terms. Get rid of 15. What is that? What number was that? In this case, your label would be units. You can put 12 back in, figure out what the larger one is, you see a problem about larger and smaller numbers is very similar to perimeter problems. So you guys are going to start off with the no calculator section first, so go ahead and go put your calculators back behind your phone.